We're going to put together 3 different kind of use cases, and Aaron is going to get peppered with questions from the new guy.
I can take it. I can take it.
So that's really the goal today, is to make him uncomfortable. So this is not a surprise to anyone in this room. The health plans, distribution, everyone's experiencing margin compression. And part of the reason for that margin compression is the Inflation Reduction Act. Prior to the Inflation Reduction Act, the Part D cost that sat with the plan was about 30%. So if you can think about it from this perspective, 30% of the cost existed with Part D, 70% existed with medical. Post-Inflation Reduction Act, that flip-flopped. Now 60% of the cost on those plans is with prescription drug plan, and 40% sits with the medical side. And there's some averages in there, but generally speaking, the plan costs have doubled post-IRA, which is why we're seeing a lot of the margin compression. That's one of the reasons. So, Aaron, understanding all of these challenges, how does Active Analytics help with this?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's think about that challenge statement for a second. You know, Active Analytics at its core is really about uncovering areas of disruption. But where we're really evolving our efforts is not just understanding the crest of the wave, right? When someone is actually impacted, the pain point to the member, it's understanding where that wave came from. Right, so when we're talking about disruptions to a plan, the costs increasing, the benefits decreasing, plans getting terminated, plans consolidating in different markets, what's the underlying cause? A lot of times that underlying cause is exactly what Brent is talking about, is that margin compression on behalf of health plans. And what might be the cause of that? Well, ultimately, a big cause of that is the increased accountability and increased pressure for drug costs on behalf of health plans. So with Active Analytics, we're not only looking to solve for the disruptions, right? Exposing who is going to be affected by a plan discontinuation, by a formulary change, by a price, but the underlying cause. And in some cases here, it's our insight around therapeutic alternatives. It's around helping our partners understand where members are taking expensive medications and where there might be lower cost alternatives available to them. So we have insight within Active Analytics that gets at exactly that allows us to identify the members who are facing very steep drug costs, but don't have to, can experience lower drug costs through therapeutic alternatives. And let's take just a little moment to understand how we actually do that, right? Because that's the goal, but how do we actually achieve it? Well, Connecture, just how we collect data and how we have access to data, we not only have access to millions of members, their geographics, demographic information, their plan information, we also have access to a wide breadth of prescription information. A lot of times our partners will collect this for enrollment purposes. So you pair those two things together, we're sitting on an immense data set of not only what members are in a specific organization, but what drugs those members are taking. Now you pepper on some of Connecture's secret sauce, you add in our incredible clinical team that has developed a proprietary algorithm that determines when a drug has a lower cost alternative. You pair those 3 parts together, coalesce them together in our Active Analytics platform, what comes out at the other end as an insight of really being able to proactively understand how members are impacted are members who are taking expensive medications, but could be taking much lower cost ones, and understand the exact members where that opportunity may exist.
So the first pepper question.
Sure.
As the new guy. So let's just use my father as an example. He's on a series of brand name drugs.
Yeah.
In reality, how does this help the member?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take this member by member. You know, your father, for example, let's say he's taking 5 medications, and 4 of them are brand name drugs, right? Are the ones that show up on commercials, or the ones that he asked his doctor about because the commercial said so, right? In a lot of cases, those brand name drugs will have generic alternatives that are much preferred by that health plan, right? Just by the nature of the cost and how that drug evolves over time to have a generic alternative. So in your father's case, if he was working with an agent that helped him enroll in his plan, and that agent had active analytics, that agent would be able to say, now hold on, Mr. Hess Sr. Has some opportunities here to save some money, right? And that agent would be able to work with him one-on-one. Now, the exciting thing is it doesn't just stop with the agent. It doesn't just stop with someone who is working with a specific book of business. Like a lot of folks here, might have 100, 500, 1,000 members in a book of business. Imagine that in the hands of a health plan to not just help one Mr. Hess Sr., but a million Mr. Hess Seniors, and understand that they have 100,000 members, 200,000 members that are all taking the same very expensive medications, and that if they worked with that population to move them to lower cost drugs, how that cascade of effects could have positive impacts on the entire industry to build more stability, to lower costs, and ultimately make sure that members, like your father, are served in the best way possible.
That's fantastic. I'm still a little bit concerned about your enthusiasm for this data set, but you should know that Aaron is the brain behind this. He leads the product development, and really grateful for the progress we've made on this. All right, let's go to the next one.
Sure.
So one of the challenges that exists in Medicare is when those members come in, there's no census file like there is in group health insurance. So the members come in, a lot of those members are unknown until claims begin to process. So with medication, it could be 30 to 90 days. For medical claims, it could be 180 days. So It's very, very challenging for health plans to know who's coming to them and how they properly manage them.
Yeah.
So this is the magic question. Aaron, how does active analytics support this scenario?
Yeah, totally. I mean, access to data is one thing. Timely access to data is a whole nother ballgame. Just knowing that a health plan can understand their population is only one half of the equation. The other half is understanding who their population is in time so that they can actually do something about it, so that they can delegate to care management teams, to customer support teams, to internal sales teams that can begin to engage with those members and just understand the strategic implications of how a population actually flows out. And just like you said, there has to be data that supports some of those decisions, right? You can operate on a hunch or you can operate on good data. But just to your point, a lot of that data lags well beyond the window when a decision would actually be impactful. If you have an inbound population and you can't meaningfully say, well, am I going to have a bunch of risk over here, a bunch of risk over here? To be able to say that confidently 90 to 180 days later, you miss that window. So with respect to the platform that we have built, Active Analytics, because Connexure is such a steward for enrollment in this industry, we're the steward of millions of enrollments every single year. We have access to that timely data on who these members are and how they form a population. How we know the exact amount of enrollees that come through our platform that fall into every single zip code across the country, right? It fall into every single plan type, subtype, SNP type, all the drugs that they're taking, right? All these certain data points, we have that at the time of enrollment. What we're doing through Active Analytics is we're making a lot of that data available directly to the health plans and allowing them to understand what their inbound population looks like months before they've had the access to that data in the past. And again, the point that we made with our previous point on Active Analytics is, why is this impactful for the downstream effects? A health plan being able to understand what their population looks like earlier allows for the agent world and the health plan world to be much more in concert with each other, right? With the scale of information we're providing here, gone are the days of a health plan operating on much different information than an agent has, who collected that information sitting across the dining room table. So it gets us really excited around what we're able to do and the time at which we're able to deliver it.
So let me ask a question that some in the room might be thinking. So December 7th, AEP ends.
Yeah.
All the enrollments are submitted. What can I actually do on December 8th?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the cool thing about it is not just thinking about December 7th to the 8th, It's thinking about what you can do from October 15th to 16th. And then from the 16th to the 17th, and then to the 18th, right? The data we're talking about here is not a 0 and 1, right after AEP ends, it all becomes available. We're talking about a daily inbound member analysis. So we're talking about a health plan and an organization's ability to see how their population is evolving day by day. So really what's able to happen on December 8th is to say, all right, it's not just them saying, oh, great, now we have access to the data. Let's scramble to understand it all at once. Like, let's sit in that conference room late into the night. But it allows them to say, oh, our teams have been familiar with what this population looks like for the last month and a half, right, for the last 2 months. And now let's really validate the decisions we've wanted to make and ensure that we can enact them for this incoming population.
Love it. One of the things that some folks might be wondering is the actual how, like what does the display of this data look like? How do they access it?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back if this clicker will allow me to. Can you explain to our audience what's happening in what will be a very small screen?
Yeah. So what you're seeing here with a little bit of movie magic is an example of what these reports actually look like. So what is on screen right now is actually a live view of a demo space within Active Analytics. So when we talk about that daily feed of information, it all feeds into an interactive dashboard that can be permissioned to both executives or to downline teams within an organization to take action. So it's not only understanding how this data kind of looks and can be filtered, but what we're viewing here on screen is how any member with access to the data can easily build a campaign from that information. So if, let's play out a scenario. Let's say that we're the executives of a health plan, right? And we're looking at this data, we see how it starts to play out, and we say, of these 253,000 people, we think we need to focus on 10,000 of them first and put all of our efforts on that group right away, because they're going to be the ones who are most impacted by this industry or by the plans that they're in. This system allows you to filter down exactly who those 10,000 people are, to build a campaign for them, and then to reflect that campaign either in the system itself or within a CRM or a communication or engagement tool that health plan is using to make sure that those 10,000 people don't go unaddressed, right? It's hence the name of the platform itself, Active Analytics, right? It's not just about knowing the information or understanding the rhythm. It's about setting the tempo. It's about actually doing something with the information you're seeing.
That's awesome. Not passive analytics, active analytics.
Yeah.
Not
passive analytics, that platform comes later.
So passive aggressive, active aggressive, maybe we could talk about that next.
Yeah, so passive aggressive analytics is another
All right. Our last beat or use case. So as we think about members enrolling in plans, sometimes the agents are constrained, or distribution, right? It doesn't have to be an agent, but distribution is constrained of what they can ask. So they generally get doctors, they get prescriptions, if they're just doing a Medicare plan. So thinking about a member sits down with an agent, they don't know anything about him.
Right.
And they now have to begin thinking through, how do I best serve this member's needs? So they enroll in a plan, and later on they find out that member could have enrolled in a special needs plan.
Right.
So here's some data for you. We ran a huge swath of analysis, and what we learned was about 40% of the membership was on a standard Medicare Advantage plan, but qualified through clinical analysis based on their prescriptions they were taking for a special needs plan. So think about the impact that has on the members' benefits, where they could have had better benefits had they joined the special needs plan, and think about the impact that has on the health plan. So I'm not going to talk about the revenue differential, just in case our regulators are in the room.
Right.
Because that's not the focus. The focus is about helping people and getting them in the right plan.
Right.
I know you're really jazzed about this one. So
Yes.
Go ahead and tell us how Active Analytics solves for this.
Yes, well, Brent, I am jazzed about this, as I should be. which, by the way, we talk a lot in music metaphors, and you'll see a lot of those throughout this. But I think it sets the right tone here, because there is a lot to be jazzed or excited about within these insights, right? And the key thing that gets me really excited around identifying folks who have enrolled in either a MedSup or a MedAdvantage plan, but could have enrolled in a DSNP or a CSNP, is one, just how impactful of an opportunity that is for the member, right? To have a decrease in cost, to have an increase in benefits, but also that it is a challenge that Connecture is uniquely positioned to solve. There aren't a lot of organizations that at scale could say that there are even 200,000 members that could have enrolled in a SNP plan but didn't. And the whole reason why we're up here even talking about it is because of our history as an organization, right? Because we're able to take in millions upon millions of members and their information, millions of drug cabinets and the prescriptions that a member is on, but also through our clinical team, we're able to essentially have built a SNP indication engine. And what we mean by that is a capability within our data tool set that allows us to say, based on the drugs that a member is taking, here are the conditions that those drugs qualify for, and here are the SNP plans that operate within those drug conditions. So we're going all the way from medicine cabinet to the conditions that that member is likely to have, to the SNP plans that that member would then qualify for, and able to serve all of that up to the partners and the customers of Active Analytics, all for this purpose of better serving that member, right? Of ensuring that they're never left in the dark when there is a better opportunity based on exactly who that member is.
All right, so let me give you a real life example. So 21 years ago, I had the privilege of going to a Humana training in Louisville, Kentucky. And one of the ladies is here that was in Kentucky with me. I will not use her name or call her out or ask her to stand up. So let's say she goes to a home and enrolls somebody in a Medicare Advantage plan that could have qualified for a special needs plan. Talk the audience through how they would actually go about identifying that member as a special needs plan member, and then obviously they could go through the enrollment process after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so let's talk through this on a specific agent lens. So let's say that an agent is doing their normal course of business, right? Which, side note, which I believe is an incredibly important aspect of this industry. Like, you'll hear a lot of folks who are trying to diminish the importance of just engaging with a member, of just sitting with them, of helping them recognize that Medicare is confusing and it's very frustrating, but you are there to help them. It's a side note, but it's an important one that I really think that as an activity in our industry is such a crucial piece of the puzzle. But let's say that this agent went through that process, right? Sat with that member to look through the pill bottles, to figure out what medications they were taking, to talk about their drugs, to talk about their needs, to talk about their cost expectations, and ultimately determined that that year that an MAPD plan was a good fit for them, right? Totally normal thing to determine, right? Now let's say that a year later, that agent now has access to Active Analytics, right? And has wanted to re-engage with that member, but wants to give them a relevant opportunity, right? To let them know that that agent is looking out for that member. And in Active Analytics, they saw that that member has certain drugs in their cabinet that qualifies them for a chronic lung disease CSNP plan, right? Where an MAPD plan could have really satisfied their needs at that time of enrollment, but the way that these SNP plans are set up, they can be enrolled in any time throughout the year. So that's a very relevant engagement opportunity for that agent to then re-engage that member and say, hey, I was just presented with some really interesting information. Would you be open to talking about how we might be able to reduce some of your costs and give you care that is much more fit for you? You know, we heard this morning in the plenary session around the crisis of confidence that is being experienced among the consumer population, that I think in a lot of cases, consumers might be dwindling in their belief that this industry has their best interests in mind. Our way of exposing this information is really a strong way to put in the hands of people that can take action the really relevant engagement opportunities to make sure that anyone, whether it is a managed care team member at a health plan, whether it's a customer service team member or an agent, the information to ultimately jump on the phone, or whatever method that takes, but jump on the phone and say, hey, I think I've got something that really fits your needs, and here's why. Would you want to chat with me about it? I think that's a really important and impactful thing.
That's awesome. Before we tie all this together, you should know that he had laryngitis as of yesterday. So it's amazing that he's even up here, and I'm grateful you are up here because I would have done something other than talk about active analytics.
How's your tap dancing?
Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But I would like to go back again and help the audience understand what is it that they're seeing as far as the dashboard when it comes to the CSNP eligibility?
Yeah, totally. So similar to that view we showed before, what we're viewing here is an example of the report that's generated for these opportunities. So this executive user, saw that there are 25,000 people within their organization that qualify for a CSNP plan, and then was able to drill in to each of those individual conditions to say, oh, of those 25,000, there are 1,400 that might qualify for a cancer CSNP. There are 5,600 that might qualify for an end-stage renal disease CSNP, right? So getting to that level of specificity within the data itself. And again, a lot of this that we're looking at on screen here is at that executive level, but all of this information can then be delegated down to a specific agent. So where this report is at the scale of n equals 25,000, an agent with access to active analytics would see this same report, but it might be 100 members, it might be 55 members, it might be a much smaller set because they've been permissioned to data that only they can see. The other really impactful thing that we're doing with these reports and with these insights is we're making them very relevant for the member itself. So what we're viewing here in terms of this member table, there's a hover over that if we were to hover over this in a live scenario, you would see the available CSNP plans in that member's area. So a member might live in an area where there's only one CSNP option for them, makes the conversation very simple. Right? Hey, would you want to explore a SNP plan? Great, there's one available in your area. But there might be a multitude of options for these SNP plans that within them have some slight variability. But again, it all supports this thought that we need to be providing our members with better choices, and choices that are more tailored to exactly who that member is. And active analytics is that way to make that mandate very real and very actionable.
That's awesome. So what I've heard is if we do not get off stage in time, that there's a trap door that opens up and we fall through. The good news is we only fall through about 2 feet.
Right, yeah, it's just
the
the floor here.
Yeah.
So.
Anyways, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, well, Brent, if you don't mind, I'll kind of take a stab at a little bit of a summary here. We talk a lot about how Medicare shifts from year to year, sometimes for the positive, sometimes for the negative, but I think we all recognize, whether you're from the agency side, the health plan side, that the rhythm of our market is consistently changing, for better or for worse. And sometimes, let's be real here, sometimes it feels like it's for the worse. And just understanding, just knowing that fact in and of itself is not in and of itself a level of transparency and clarity. I think that just knowing that there is disruption happening is not necessarily a positive, it's almost a negative, right? There's a sense of frustration of knowing that 1.4 million seniors last year were affected by plan terminations. There's a level of frustration of knowing that 3 million seniors this year have reported that they can't afford their prescription drugs. Right? So just knowing that these areas of disruption are occurring is not itself what makes it actionable. What really makes it actionable, what really allows for any one of us to lead with a sense of clarity, with a sense of transparency, with a sense of empowerment is the transparency, is knowing what members are actually affected, knowing who actually needs to be reached out to, knowing who needs a higher level of touch. And yes, active analytics is new, but it's delivering on that promise. And it's doing so for a lot of organizations across this industry. It's allowing for folks who understand that our market will always be shifting beneath our feet. It allows them to do something about it, right? Let's use the music metaphor for a second. Would it be better just to know how to read music, or would it be better to be able to jump on stage and play the music, right? Active analytics in and of itself is really allowing for our members, our organizations, to know that there are changes to the rhythm, but not let that be the end of the story, but to actually take action and ultimately set the tempo.
That's awesome. You probably don't know this, but I play the clarinet sax, and I'm trying to learn the guitar right now.
Nice.
If my fingers would cooperate, I would do better. So maybe I could have done that up here instead.
Hey, yeah.
So as we wrap this up, one of the things I've been thinking about is on the health plan side, prior to coming to Connecture, how amazing it would have been to be able to provide a pie chart that showed the percentage of members that had joined the plan as of December 7th that had diabetes, or percentage of members that had joined the plan that had chronic heart failure or pulmonary disease, and how we would have responded to each of those members differently had we had that data so that we could react. I think actionable insights is one of those things that people say to try to fit in, and I'm one of those.
Yeah.
But I do believe that there's more to it here because we have the data. We have use cases that demonstrate that there's a significant ROA in excess of 3 to 1.
Yeah.
And it's been a really great ride so far the last 3 weeks. So we are at booth 357. I have not been there yet. I promised my team I will go and visit the booth. We've been busy, but we're at booth 357. There's a number of Connection employees here. If you're interested in a demo, you're interested in learning more, you can reach out to your account manager, Aaron, myself, or any one of the Connecture team members. We are grateful for your attendance and grateful for your interest in active analytics. Thank you so much.
Thank you.